All right. Good evening. Probably good evening, everyone. It's pretty late over where you are, I think, Alan, isn't it? I don't know what
Yeah,
time it is, but
it
it's
is
late.
dark out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's mid-afternoon here, and so we just thought we'd come in and do a quick reaction show to the information that we got earlier tonight with Mitchell Robinson's injury. So he suffered a fractured hand during their game tonight, and we don't have word yet on sort of how serious it is or what the time frame is on the injury. So I guess that makes it a little bit tricky in terms of projecting what you're going to be doing and who you're dropping and that sort of thing. But based on similar injuries and a little bit of research that I've done in the 10 minutes that I've been sitting on the computer, we're probably looking at a month at least for his injury. But again, I'm not a doctor, so don't trust me there. But we'll run with a month. So we just thought, yeah, we'd give our initial thoughts on the injury, and obviously Noel is the pickup here, and so yeah, what are your, I guess, where are you on Noel right now?
So I mean, he's always been a name that we've kept in sort of the forefronts of our heads. But I mean, first of all, I hope Mitchell Robinson's injury is on the shorter timeline of things, especially for young guy on a team with like the Knicks that are pretty close to that playoff picture there. So I mean, hopefully it's not going to be something that keeps him out much longer than a month. But as far as like the fantasy impact's concerned, Noel, he's the guy. He's going to jump into a 30-minute role most nights, you would assume, especially with Tom Thibodeau and how he tends to really lean into his starters. Noel has always had a permanent upside that we've seen for a while. He could be someone who really accumulates defensive stats, great percentages, and should be an above average rebounder too with the role that's going towards him. And last year, in only 18 minutes per game, he was a top, what was it, 80 player in 9-cat on the year.
Yeah.
It's, he doesn't need a lot of time to already be a guy who really helps your team. And the role we're about to see from him coming up here, I don't know if there's ever been a better situation. So for Noel to produce, it's a huge opportunity for him, obviously. And I expect big things. I would think that, he's about to go on a pretty significant run here, maybe even top 60, top 50 conversation. Probably more on the, I might be a little bit generous there. Top 50 honestly seems very real for him for this stretch without Mitchell Robinson.
Yeah, look, I think, yeah, I guess the issue is that we've never seen him play this many minutes, or potentially this many minutes. So it is a little bit uncharted in terms of what his production's going to be like. I mean, we know what his per 36 numbers are, but as we know, they don't often translate once a player actually gets 36 minutes because they get tired and that sort of thing. So I would, and I mean, looking at tonight's box score, it's probably not a great example because the game was a blowout. He didn't play in the last quarter. They played Taj Gibson for the entire fourth quarter, I think. So it's fair to assume that Noel would have, like, if it had been close, he probably would have grabbed the last 6 or 7 minutes, which would have bumped him up to, hang on, I'm just going to their box. God, there's a lot of games today. He only played 16. So, I mean, that bumps him up to 23. And he was actually he got 3 fouls really quickly tonight. So he was on and off very quickly. So I would probably be projecting him to play 26 minutes, maybe 26 to 28. But as you said, that's more than enough for him to be a top 60 player, top 50 player. I guess the question that we've seen it in our Discord server, and we've got a few questions here that will pop up on the screen, is who am I dropping to pick up Noel? And that, yeah, I mean, we'll bring these questions up and sort of work through them one by one. So that's the first one. So Justin Holiday, Brandon Clarke, Dante DiVincenzo, Davis Bertans, or Kelly Olynyk for Noel. So who would you be dropping now? I know who I'm dropping. Who are you dropping?
I mean, of that list right there, I think it's going to be Kelly Olynyk there, mostly just, I think that we feel pretty good about his outlook, but compared to those other guys on the list there, he's, I think, the most low end of that bunch. And I don't think there's a shred of doubt in either of our minds that Noel will be able to outperform the numbers that Kelly Olynyk's going to be bringing to the table.
Yeah, I think so. I think for me, it's Bertans or Olynyk. Olynyk has looked better the last couple of games, and he's sort of someone who, his ceiling's pretty capped. But he can contribute. Bertans has been pretty ordinary. I'm just having a look what he did today. So he had 9 points today. He had 9 points in his last game, and he's not really doing anything other than hitting a few threes.
That's a good point,
So, yeah, I think for me it would be probably Bertans first, then Olynyk. And then, once you've done that, you don't need to consider those others. So that's who it would be. Yeah, that's who it would be for me.
The hang-up I guess I had on Bertans was just that I feel that he's not been very productive so far. I do feel, though, that there is still a level for him to go up. And we've seen at like the highest peak of his powers that he is at a higher level than Olynyk. But there is a lot of uncertainty, too, in Washington this season in general. I mean, he has had several bouts with injury and obviously his COVID diagnosis. And it might be a long stretch for him to really ramp up to the level that we saw last year. So, I mean, yeah, it's definitely between those two, and I can see it both ways. And I don't think that you could go wrong with either. But at the moment, Olynyk is more productive than Bertans, but I could see him having Bertans that is the higher ceiling.
Yeah, and as you said, I mean, with all the COVID stuff, every player who has contracted COVID, their recovery is different, and we don't know. Yeah, he's playing 30 minutes, but how healthy is he? We don't really know. So go to the next question. So this is one we were chatting about just before we came on. So neither of us are huge into free agency budget, but we'll do what we can. So what percentage of your fab would you put towards Noel in a 9-cat 14 team? What do we think? Well, minutes per game, I guess I sort of touched on my thoughts there. I think 26 to 28. I don't know where you are with minutes. I think you mentioned around 30 maybe.
At the highest levels, but I mean, I think it definitely, I don't think the floor could be lower than 26, given what we've seen from him over the last month or so. It's been about 21.
No, that's right.
Game. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's just but projecting lower than 30 is definitely safer, considering that this is his biggest opportunity that he's had in his career so far. And to be cautious, you don't know exactly how much he's going to be able to go out there consistently. And Taj Gibson is a favorite of Tom Thibodeau. Even if he is, a little past his prime, he has still shown that he can put out productive minutes, at least on the floor with defensive effort. And, Thibodeau loves that. So it's uncharted territory, but 26, I feel like, is a good range, again, for Noel to do what we expect him to.
Yeah, and I think, you project on the lower end to be safe, as you said, and I don't see it, being below 25, 26, given the role he had already. Taj Gibson, obviously, he's a factor, and it doesn't help that Tibbs loves him so much. I would like to think that he doesn't take minutes away from Noel, but you just don't know with Tibbs. And I think probably Obi Toppin, he might see a few more minutes as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, I think sort of mid 20s is the floor there. So in terms of the free agency budget, I guess when we chatted about this as well, it can depend a little bit on your league. So if your league, if you have other sort of managers in your league who are pretty reckless with their money and they've already dropped quite a lot of their free agency budget on other players, you might be able to get him a little bit cheaper. So just have a bit of a look at the other teams and see what their budgets are like. And also depends on your needs. With a player like Noel, he's not a guy that you're picking up because he gives you across the board production. He's very specific. So you're only getting him if you need defensive stats and some rebounds, really. Outside of that, he's efficient from the floor, but he doesn't take many shots. So he's not going to have a huge impact on your field goal percentage. So look, I would probably, I'm in a league where our budget is $70, and I would probably look at dropping, I don't know, $15 on him, maybe out of that, $10 to $15. So maybe you're looking at 20%. But again, it's hard to know until we get word on the injury. I mean, Miles Turner broke his finger or his hand or something, didn't he? And he missed 2 games. So, whereas Steph Curry last season broke his hand and missed, I don't know, it was 3 months or something. It was a huge chunk of the season.
It comes down to exactly where the fracture takes place. And by no means am I a doctor. That's just the difference between those two is just, I think Curry's fracture was sort of more centralized to like the middle of his hand, if I remember correctly, which caused a lot more issues down the line. At the moment, we've only gotten word that it's a fracture, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing else there.
No, nothing that I've seen. No, I guess it'll be tomorrow once they do X-rays and all the tests they need to do. Yeah.
I guess just to wrap up the Fab question, because again, I'm also not an expert, but assuming that we project Noel to be with like 26-minute role at worst, and we would think that that'd be a fair top 60 player in that range, right? Like if we were to make that assumption, someone who's comparable in different ways, but around that rank right now, think of Jarrett Allen, who has been a top 60 player in 26 minutes per game. And he's doing it probably with a better rebounding rate than Nerlens Noel will get to, but high block numbers, about 1.5 per game. The offense is probably not going to be there for Noel either, but where Noel can perhaps jump Allen in that situation would be with, higher steal numbers and perhaps lower turnovers on, still solid efficiency on maybe lower shots. But if that's a top 60 player, I mean, if you had someone of that caliber floating around on your wire, how much would you offer in that type of situation?
Yeah, that's right. And as you said, I think he's not going to get as many rebounds as people probably think. He's never been a huge rebounder. Right. He may get up to 10 on the odd night, but it's not going to be, I don't think he'll sort of average 10 rebounds or anything like that. It's going to be those blocks. I mean, he'll probably look at, I would say he'd probably average 3 blocks if he's playing 26 minutes. I mean, I think he's the 6th ranked player in the league in blocks in whatever he's been playing, which is like 18 minutes. Yeah. So, you add a sort of 50% to that. He's going to be right up there with the league leaders in blocks and the steals as well. I think he'll be over a steal, maybe 1.5 steals, which out of the center position is really good. So. So the next question there, and there is a theme, and we'll see it in the next ones as well.
Yeah, you guys have some similar teams here.
Yeah, so Justin Holiday, Bertans, or Kevin Huerter for Noel. It's Bertans again for me there, I think. Huerter, I don't even know what he did tonight. I know Atlanta got smashed.
Yeah, no, it wasn't pretty.
So he probably didn't do a lot. No, he did absolutely nothing. So based on tonight's game, Huerter doesn't really make a strong case for himself. But he's been good up until tonight. And that game was ugly against they only lost by 11, but I think they were down by almost 40 at one point. So,
right.
Any different thoughts there on that one?
No, I'm Bertans on that one too. I mean, Huerter, the role that he's in right now, I mean, he's been a top 90 player or a top 95 player on the year in 9-cat. And with DeAndre Hunter out until April and really no timetable on Bogdan Bogdanovic, there's no reason to think that Huerter doesn't have a timetable on exactly how long he's going to go on this run. I mean, it could be sustained pretty much until your fantasy playoffs. And he's someone that's worth holding on to for a variety of different things that he does there. And Bertans is just, not
and I think
right now.
I think for Huerter as well, I think Reddish has just been terrible. I touched on Reddish in the pre-game show this morning, and I said that I'm still holding him in a couple of teams.
Yeah.
That's not the case anymore. He has since made his way to the waiver wires since this morning's show. So Reddish has looked terrible, which
it hurts me to say that, but no, I mean, I'm rooting for him in real life. I had him in a team in another situation, but it's just not all there for him right now. Until that shot comes around on a consistent basis, he's just not trustable in most formats.
So the next one, this will be pretty easy.
I think we've answered it. Yeah.
Yep. So yes, I would drop Bertans for Noel.
Go for it.
So this one here is actually an interesting one. So are we dropping Wendell Carter for Noel? I have to think about that one. So what are your thoughts?
Thank you for passing that to me. So I think out loud, because I think we both agree that Wendell Carter has I mean, I'm not sure how you felt about him heading into the season, but I was pretty high on his, prospects to sort of break out with a new coaching staff that wants to utilize his skill sets differently as a passer and 3-point shooter. And he hasn't really shown that yet. He has high upside still, I think, just because he is a skilled player with a large runway to play time. But I feel like I feel safer betting on Noel to pay off in whatever role that he has coming for him over Wendell Carter sort of putting it all together coming off of that quad injury. I don't know. Am I a little too high there on Noel or too low on Carter, or do you agree there?
No, look, I think it's a really hard one because Carter was questionable. I mean, we assumed he was still another 2 weeks away based on his initial timetable, and then he was listed as doubtful, questionable for tonight's game. So I don't know whether that's an indication that he's pretty close. He might be ahead of his timetable, or whether it was just a typo when they sent in the injury report and he wasn't meant to be on there as doubtful or questionable. So yeah, look, I would, if you need production now and you don't have sort of IR spots to keep Carter in, then I think you probably have to go Noel, just because he's going to be solid for potentially a month. If you've got Carter in an IR spot, then you wouldn't be dropping him. So I'm assuming this question would be relating to a roster that doesn't have an IR spot, and you've got Carter just sitting there putting up zeros. If you're sort of battling in your standings and you need victories and you need wins, then I would probably consider it. And as you said, Carter has a lot of upside, but even this season, he hasn't. When he was on the court, he was good, and I think he was better than he has been, but he still wasn't as good as what we'd hoped. So, yeah, I don't think he's not a player that's got top 40 upside or anything this season. I don't think. I think he's probably best case sort of maybe a top 80 player. Is that about what you think?
That's exactly where I would think it's for this year, at least. That's where it would be. Whereas Noel, which again, I should preface that this is under the assumption that he's got several weeks of runway here, like a month, like Adam suggested. If everything we've seen from him, the body of work would suggest that it doesn't take much more than just more playing time for him to consistently produce to a level that would probably outperform top 80. I would feel comfortable betting that he would pass that. So I'm inclined. There's a lot of unknowns on both sides, but I'm inclined to think that Noel is going to be the better option if he's got the starting gig all to himself, and this is a legitimate run for him to do something with it.
Yeah, I'd agree there. So we've got one more. It's sort of a two. What have we got to Alec Burks? So I'll bring up this one. So I think the question here, I think, is whether this helps Alec Burks. Is that how you're reading the question?
Yeah, that's how I would see that. And, Robinson's not his offense didn't come from plays being called for him. I mean, if they were usually lob threats. So in terms of Burks having more shots in the offense, maybe, but that's not really the impact I could I don't think that's necessarily what's going to happen here. I think that the offensive opportunities that Mitchell Robinson was seeing will more or less go to Noel, and Taj Gibson will more or less absorb what Noel's chances were. If I'm looking at anyone's particular, and you mentioned this name earlier, and it's probably worth bringing back up. If anything, if I'm looking for someone to perhaps see more touches that's outside those two guys at center, it'd probably be Obi Toppin. I mean, there might be more scenarios where Thibodeau runs Julius Randle perhaps at the 5, and Obi gets more minutes at the 4 in that case, because we haven't seen them play together much at all. It's unclear if Toppin's capable of playing much center, but if he's out there more often next to Randle at the 4, we know that he's got some offensive upside that is yet to be realized, but he was as good as anyone in college, scoring the ball in a multitude of different ways. So I'd more lean towards him being like perhaps the sneaky guy to get more opportunity here.
Yeah, I think so. And again, looking at tonight's box score is not a great baseline to look at minutes and playing time, because it was a blowout. So, yeah, I guess the thinking here is that, as you said, they play Julius Randle up at the 5, and then they could even shift RJ Barrett to power forward potentially a little bit as well, and maybe run with 3 guards. So running sort of Alec Burks at small forward a little bit more. But as you said, I don't think it has a huge impact on Burks. I think it is Toppin and Barrett. Randle, in terms of where he's playing on the floor, he may play a little bit more at center depending on the matchup. And so Burks, I mean, he's a guy that I dropped a couple of games ago, and I haven't regretted it yet. And I mean, he didn't even score tonight. He missed. He only took 3 shots. So I think with Derrick Rose there, and with Elfrid Payton playing well enough to at least be soaking up minutes, and then Emmanuel Quickly was good again tonight in limited minutes. So I think it's for Burks, it's just that he's the odd man out there in the guard rotation, and he may get hot again at some point. That wouldn't surprise me at all, but I don't think I'd be holding Burks at the moment.
Agreed. Yeah, I think with Rose coming in, a lot of Burks' upside that we were excited about is been limited just because he's no longer the clear go-to guy to get first looks in the perimeter offense off the bench with Rose in town. Yeah.
So that's it with the questions there. So that was good. It's always good to have questions. That it gives us something to talk about. So thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll post this up on Twitter, obviously, as well. And if you can, I don't know where it is on the bottom, but give us that thumbs up down the bottom and subscribe to our channel. That'd be really good. We appreciate anyone that is part of our hoopball community. And you can follow me on Twitter at AdamKing91. Let's move this so we can see our Twitter handle. There we go. So I'm at AdamKing91, at Alan Srochi. Is it Srochi or Srochi?
Yeah, no, that was perfect. You got
Srochi, yeah. So I said on the video this morning, my name's very easy to spell. You and Dan have tricky names to spell.
We luckily we were amazingly able to get the handles that we have. You'd think the'd be a lot of competition, but
you would. Such a common name.
But no, apparently we were able to get them. It was great.
Yeah. So so that's it for this one. I will be back tomorrow to do the pre-game show, I think, and then I'm not sure if you're doing one for Sunday.
I guess we'll have to figure that out. It's either Sunday or Wednesday for me. So.
Yeah. All right. We'll figure that out. All right. No worries. Thanks. Good luck there's not much left tonight, but for tomorrow's games, I'll see everyone in the morning. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.